Thanks. It's my pleasure today to interview Jason Conyard. And we did a session. He and I did a session with a celebrity a few weeks back, and I actually did a lot of background on the celebrity, looked at a lot of his shows and things like that. So I kind of felt obligated to do the same with Jason, except he doesn't have a lot of video stuff. But I did dive into his LinkedIn, and I don't want you all to think I was creeping on him or anything like that. I just wanted to give you some interesting stuff before I do his formal introduction. But here's from Clark Ferber. Jason is a strong leader and executive who motivates people, builds teams, and communicated across all levels with impact. He's passionate, intelligent, focused, and has both broad and deep technical skills and knowledge. He's a guy that influences positive change. I love this one from Marty Quintanilla. Jason has an uncanny ability to engage everyone from hands-on technical engineers to C-level executives. And then Dominic Fels, who actually worked for Jason twice, both at Barclays and then at BlackRock, says, Jason mentored my professional development and gave me the opportunity to lead in a challenging and broad environment. I found Jason to be talented, hardworking, enthusiastic, and a great colleague to work with and stuff. But with that, let me introduce Jason Conyard. He is VMware's CIO. And again, Jason, congratulations. You were promoted to CIO last year and then senior vice president, I believe, as well. Congratulations and welcome to this interview.
Thanks a lot, Robert. I didn't know you were going to do that. And it was nice to hear some of those names. I have very fond memories of working with those individuals as well as many others. So thank you.
Well, great. Thanks. And again, thanks for joining us. We're going to talk about your accession to the CIO role, if you will, some of your background, those types of things. We'll also talk about business continuity, how you've innovative in the past, not just here at VMware the last few years, but before that. We'll talk about how do you align to business goals, if you will, right, and the changing business environments. We'll even delve into some of the diversity and equity work that you've been doing. But why don't we get started? Let's talk a little bit about some of the roles that you've had prior to being CIO. How did you what was the foundation for you? How did you move up into that CIO role and some key roles that you played prior to that?
So I've done a lot of different things in my career, and I'm happy to talk about that. I think if we go all the way back to the very beginning, kind of when I got my really, really early start, I used to actually clean windows on the high street in a town in the UK. So may not be directly relatable to my job as a CIO today, but I certainly think there are a lot of foundational skills that I learned doing that. But in terms of my more recent career, I've held roles both in IT, doing a number of different disciplines, as well as actually in product management as well. Back in the early 2000s, I actually helped was responsible for setting up the wireless security and mobile device product group at Symantec. So I've had a number of different roles over the years, and each one has kind of shaped my worldview and honed my my leadership and management skills, as well as in some cases my technical skills.
Yeah, and if your background is quite technical, right? You've been a product manager, an engineer, you've done VP of IT roles, head of end user computing, those types of things. What kind of CIO are you? A lot of the CIOs that we've seen recently kind of have a lot of business background, but would you kind of consider yourself both business and technical? What kind of style do you think you employ as a CIO?
Yeah, I think that I definitely have a business background. When I had my first official job, not just helping my father, but actually my first official job, it was actually at a museum in the UK where I was looking after the computer systems, and it was definitely a case of me being the most knowledgeable on that subject. Didn't necessarily mean I was super knowledgeable, but I was more knowledgeable than everybody else in that case. But at the same time, I was going to college and studying business. So I did start kind of with a business background or business education, but over the years developed a number of technical skills, both through doing as well as through more formal training. Mm-hmm. But when you ask what sort of CIO I am, I think what I would say is that I'm really focused on people. That's at the center of how I think and how I operate. And That is both in terms of how we enable people through technology, which in turn supports and enables the business, but also how we cultivate and develop the people inside of IT so that they can do their best work, so they can achieve their best outcomes. So if you pull all the layers of the onion back, I think you would find that people are at the center of how I think and how I operate.
That's kind of getting to my next question, right? From your view, and you see some of the comments that you were a mentor, you were positive, you influenced others. Talk a little bit about, you've been known kind of as a relationship builder, right? How much do you think building relationships with business or your different constituents in the organization are critical to your success in the jobs you've had before, but also how it'll be critical for your CIO role now?
So absolutely essential to have relationships with people, and it's not just successful because you need to understand what the business needs are and be able to shape what IT does to enable and support the business goals and vision and all. But also it's just incredibly fulfilling to understand more about people, what people are aspiring to do, both personally and professionally. Being in a situation where you can help people, to me, is just so fulfilling and so important for me personally. But jumping back to my example of cleaning windows, I remember as a teenager going out with my father on a Saturday morning. And he had a cleaning business, an industrial cleaning business. And I remember watching my father and how he would interact with people and talk to people and build relationships with people. And, I think kids are sponges, right, in many ways. And I would just absorb that. And I developed those skills by watching him and just developing a real appreciation for how you can really have a positive impact on the world by understanding, what people think and what people need. And I'm super fortunate that today I'm in a situation where I can do that.
You use those skills now.
Yeah, and building relationships with people, and not just a relationship for today, not just for the moment, not just for the thing that's in front of us, but hopefully, if you're lucky, for a lifetime. You mentioned a few names at the beginning, and you're reminding me I need to check in on some of those folks. But I was actually traded notes with Dominic Fells just a month ago to see how he was doing and how his kids were doing and what he was doing. So it's just far more fulfilling. But I also think as a leader and as a business person, I'm able to achieve greater outcomes because I'm more attuned to what people are after.
Exactly. Hey, so let's talk about people, right? And obviously, in VMware, diversity and equity and inclusion it's a big deal in the company. It's part of our culture. It's about accepting people as who they are and really kind of creating an environment where people can be who they are, right? And come as they are and contribute as much as they want to in terms of energy and effort into the company. But you've been fairly involved in diversity and equity, but talk a little bit about why that's important to you and then how you think that's important for your team in terms of having that inclusion for your organization, if you will.
Yeah. There are many different ways of looking at this. So let me just kind of touch on them for a few moments, kind of touch on all of them. If you take a purely business view at this, if you ignore any of the social positive impacts that it can have, purely from a business perspective, if VMware wants to be at the top of its game, if we want to be the best innovator, if we want to deliver the best value and capability to our customers, we absolutely have to have the very best talent. And I don't mean the best talent in one part of the world or the best talent that looks or thinks a particular way or believes a particular way. I mean, the best talent, full stop. And that means you have to look everywhere and you have to be open to finding people who think differently to you. In fact, I think that's essential, in fact, because if people are only going to validate the things you already believe, you're not really going to move the ball. And I think one of while the last year has been very challenging for many people, for those of us fortunate enough to be in the knowledge business and do knowledge work, many of us have been able to work at home, varying degrees depending on the distractions and the capabilities that we have. but that's also opened up this new opportunity for us to think about our workforce and where that workforce is and where people work and how they work differently. And I believe that also amplifies our opportunity around diversity, equity, and inclusion, because it allows us to look in unusual places rather than saying, oh, we've got to hire this person that does this particular thing in this particular city, or what talent is around this particular city that might be able to do this work. Now we can say what talent is available anywhere. And then go after that talent and find people with, you know, different skills and perspectives and stuff. Now, that's from a business perspective. From a values perspective, from a cultural perspective, I don't think we just say we want the best talent. I think we really believe we need it, and we want it because it enriches who we are. It challenges us to be our best selves and to grow by learning from each other. And I think that makes and creates a richer environment too. But that also brings us on to the I in that whole conversation, right? We talk about diversity, we talk about equity, which is, you know, treating people equally and with consideration. But inclusion, you know, why on earth would you go to all the effort of finding all this diverse talent if you don't pull it into the conversation, if you don't listen to what people have to say? I mean, that's just a waste of effort. So, so those things are important to me. And then at a personal level, it's deeply important because I also identify as being an underrepresented minority, even though in many ways people might not think it, you know, or see it. You know, I happen to be married to a fella, so you know, that makes me a little bit different to some people. And, you know, I see the world through that lens and some of those experiences.
Yeah, that's awesome. That's great. Thanks. And you know, I think it's critical, right? Obviously I am one of the co-leads for the Latino pod, right? Same thing. I'm into that. I love that conversation. I love the way you broke it down into those three pieces, right? Talent, the being able to be inclusive, but also being fair and equal across all the population, right? I think the reality is that if we're going to continue to be an international business, we're going to have to be able to relate to people around the globe. And it starts there, right? But let's switch gears a little bit. Let's talk about customer-centered experiences. Obviously, you're big on delivering a customer-centric experience, but how do you decide what to do or what to prioritize in terms of delivering that a richer customer experience?
Yeah, there are a lot of different things at play. So when I was responsible for VMware's colleague experience and technology team prior to this role, there were a number of things that I was thinking about. I was thinking about how do we create an experience that really enables people to do their best work, reduces the friction that gets in the way of people starting their day from the moment they open their laptop, all the way through all the business things that they need to do, the tools they need to interact with, all the way through to, you know, going out for a coffee and having that, you know, their office in their pocket on their mobile device because it's, you know, it's enabled through Workspace ONE and all these other things, thinking about really truly the end-to-end experience. And that was really important. The other thing, Robert, is it created this great opportunity to attract talent and to retain talent, because we were getting people to think differently about how we delivered IT solutions and really encouraging those teams to stretch their imagination, be creative, be innovative, and do new stuff. And you know, often companies compete for talent. If you really want to be at the top of your game as a company, you've got to have really vibrant, rich talent. But no point in having a racehorse and keep it in the barn. What you need to do is give your team the freedom to imagine, to think, and create. And that was definitely part of it. But if you want to talk about it purely from a finance lens or from a business leader perspective, you could also just talk about productivity. So yes, experience is deeply important to me. Yes, creativity and innovation is important to me, but ultimately those things translate into productivity and people being able to do their very best work in a sustained way. And that's key. And as I've shifted into the new role, you know, and I've really brought that core understanding and concern and focus around experience. And I'm now expecting and growing that across all of IT. So I hope and believe you will start seeing dividends from that in the rest of the year as we start to amplify that across some of our business teams.
We're looking forward to that. But let me go back to your role right before the CIO role. Before the CIO role, you were responsible for pretty much colleague experience. You did that, and by the way, I saw you did colleague experience and employee experience
Technology,
plus IT at Juniper, right? But so you had all the colleague experience, all the technology around that. But how did that help shape and mold your perspective on IT, if you will? And how did that prepare you for that CIO role?
Profoundly, I think, because, and I think it comes back to the essence of what's important at my core as a person, which is it's about people.
Yeah.
Yes, we want to be a successful business. Yes, we want to enable and empower our customers in new and in exciting ways. But to me, that starts with us looking after the people that work inside of the company and giving people what they need and doing in a way that excites and energizes people. And I just happen to be super fortunate that I work at VMware, where we have some amazing products and solutions that we can really go to town on. We can, put in the hands of our colleagues. We can get them to experience firsthand, and sometimes that leads to interesting and exciting conversations with the product teams about how we can do better. But I think all of those things, definitely looking after colleague-facing solutions in the past has helped shape my mindset around how we think about technology and delivering value.
Yeah, and I'll be candid with you, Jason. I've been at VMware for about 12 years. Spent 8 years at BEA Systems and Oracle, and then 16 years at IBM. And I would say IBM was top notch in terms of technology for employees, but not as rich an experience, right? BEA was awesome. My first couple of years here left me very underwhelmed from an IT perspective. And I would just be candid with you. The things that you've done for employee experience for us in terms of access to the apps, access to VDI, access to device, and choice between devices that we have, right? And the way you've done that has been incredible, right? Some of the tools that you've done in terms of apps, like Sales Pulse, for instance, or vApprove. vApprove took an hour a day workload for me of reviewing Workday inbox and Concur expenses and Model N approvals. It shrunk it into 5 minutes. And to me, that's productivity. That's a huge difference. Even our onboarding experience, it's 9 minutes to onboard a new employee and get access to whatever system you want, and then do BYO with a click, if you will. So that, I would just say, I would have made you CIO just for that alone, right? But it's given all of us, and every employee, by the way, no matter what level you're at within VMware, just a great experience, and it continues to get better. So I would just say we've gone from okay to fantastic and industry-leading best practices and stuff. And I think for me, I put that on your team and what you've done, right, with the extended team. But hey, so let's talk about, as you transitioned into that CIO role, how did your background in those roles, make it smoother or easier for you to get into that CIO role?
I think every CIO makes of the job I think they bring their own experiences, but they're also shaped by the challenges that are in front of them. Yeah. I don't think any one CIO role is the same, because every company is different. And I think that in my particular case, we are on a journey to do more from a subscription and SaaS perspective. And I believe that thinking about experience, thinking about that in a joined up way, not just having excellence in silos, but really thinking about the customer journey, the partner journey, as well as the employee journey, is going to be paramount to our future success. So I believe that the experience I have, coupled with the challenges ahead, work well together. The timing is right. In terms of kind of moving into the role, definitely been drinking from a fire hose, even though I'm very familiar with the company, of course, and many of the people I'm working with have been my friends and my colleagues for several years. I'm now thinking about new challenges. I'm now thinking about how I can apply that experience to new challenges and opportunities for the company. And I'm excited. I'm excited about what we're going to do, and I appreciate the kind words you shared, Robert. I think we're going to surprise you with some more things.
Let's talk about, how do you keep up with the changing business requirements, and then more importantly, what are you planning on doing to align your team for where VMware is going in the next 5 years?
So I think in terms of keeping up with what the business requirements are, there is absolutely a relationship component to that. I think that's always critical. But to operate at scale, you can't just rely on the relationships you can have, but you have to really develop processes that are sustainable for scale. And that's a journey that we're on, and that I'm very committed to, and you'll hear more about in the future. But at the root of it is relationships, but also with a really sustainable process that you wrap around it to help qualify and prioritize what the business needs to focus on with our goals in mind. In terms of the shaping the organization, yes, there are always new things to do. When we talk about modern application development, as an example, when we talk about hybrid clouds, when we talk about doing work or being able to work from anywhere, there are a number of things we need to be thinking about differently. In some cases, that's technical skill. In other cases, it's thinking around change management in terms of helping not just the technical people, but helping the whole organization, change their point of view and move to this new state. So I think there is a very serious commitment to career development as well, and making sure that people continuously evolve their skills. So I'll use one example. The colleague support organization, the team that support you, Robert, and all of our colleagues around the world, they actually make sure that each of those team members gets 1 day a month just to focus on their technical skills.
Wow.
And the reason why we do that is because if they aren't at the top of their game, they can't provide the best service and support to all of our colleagues. So that's something we do as well. We're really very serious about continuous education, continuous improvement, because it's the only way we can ensure that we're at the top of our game.
Yeah, awesome. Thanks, Jason. Hey, so with COVID last year, and really even going through it now, right? It's forced a lot of companies to change policies. We've heard Facebook, Twitter, a bunch of different, even VMware said we're going to a distributed workforce. And clearly a lot of companies are thinking about workforce 2.0, different scenarios. But I mean, how do you, from an IT perspective, and you look at what VMware is doing in Anywhere Workspace, which is really around how do you tackle device management, access to applications, zero trust administration, a lot of stuff, right? But I don't want to talk products. I want to talk about how do you manage the organizational change? You talked about training the team, getting them ready for that. But there's a lot of change management within that. How do you kind of manage the organizational change and make that transition with crazy stuff like COVID and things like that?
Yeah, fantastic leaders. We have, it is not me. It is a group of very talented, thoughtful, dedicated leaders who are constantly communicating and talking to each other. I've talked about experience a couple of times, and I think one thing I would emphasize is that the whole team is talking about and thinking about the experience we're ultimately trying to deliver. It's not uncommon in a conversation around technology for the team to talk about how they want people to feel when they use the technology. So you don't normally think of folks, technologists talking about how they want people to feel, right?
Yeah, no, we certainly don't feel like that out here sometimes, Jason.
Right. So I think that, I think it's no surprise, or it's no mistake that the term delightful gets used inside of the team often, because the alternative, I think, the emotion most often associated with technology is frustration. And we really wanted to say, well, what's the opposite of that? And that's really very much of their thing. I think the other thing I would say, Robert, is, and I think you'll see and hear more about this as we go forward, is that we're really doubling down on how we help people change with technology and how we make sure the technology fits people more so that it's less about making people do the heavy lifting around the adjustment, and more something feeling intuitive and welcoming and familiar to you. And one area where that's very true is actually in the area of virtual reality. And we've actually been playing a lot with, I've got a virtual reality headset here. There's a lot of work that the team are doing in that space, because we're really thinking more about distributed work and how we leverage technology to get there.
Yeah. Awesome. Thank you. Hey, so you talked about virtual reality. I saw the Microsoft keynote for Ignite this morning, and big part of that was a virtual reality piece that they did. But from your perspective, what are the new technologies you want to implement at VMware to address that work from home, or that new work 2.0 type of situation of the distributed workforce? Any new technologies you're thinking about implementing that you think is critical?
Yeah, absolutely. So without making, well, actually, you know what, I'm just going to do it. A shameless plug is certainly Velo Edge. And thinking about how we can create a business-like internet experience in people's homes is going to be foundational, because if you can't connect to your colleagues, I don't know how you can be productive. As we all know, because we've all experienced it, if you're on a call, you know, a collaboration call with people, and people's audio or video is dropping out, or their slides don't reproduce, that is very painful and a significant waste of time. So we need to get to a place where people can work with confidence, and confidence includes the connectivity, but it also includes privacy, and it also includes security. So these are things that are very much top of mind for us as now. And I would add one more thing to that list, which is we're also thinking more and more about sustainability. Because a lot of companies are thinking differently about their distributed workforce, and we're hearing a lot about companies that are making choices around their office spaces. What we don't want to do is just push the problem from one place to another place. We want to actually solve problems, and we want to make sure we're thinking about, you know, sustainability, carbon footprints, energy use, and all of those other things at the same time. So they're definitely top of mind for us.
Well, it's critical, right? I mean, we just saw the storms hit Texas a couple of weeks ago, and I mean, I had power on and off every 30 minutes the first day. I had power on and off every hour the second day, and then it was 2 hours the third day, and we didn't have water for a week or so, right? But if you think of COVID and you think of these disasters that are going on, and we're now work from home employees, you talked about Velo, right? Velo Cloud to kind of help make that employee experience good. We should think, by the way, I just bought some UPS devices, right? Because I need to keep my internet up, because when the power goes out, you don't have it. And that's where, I mean, it really just shows you how important it is to have quality, have power, have water, but then also have quality internet. And if you don't have that quality internet, you can't do your job. You can do some of it over a phone. I can dial in, but you miss a big piece of that experience. And I think that's really important. But you know, how important is business continuity for you in terms of your overall plan for the company to deal with things like COVID-19 disasters, fires in the West Coast, and keeping people productive?
I think that, so very is the short answer. One of the things that I think really set VMware apart in the very early days of the pandemic is that a lot of the foundational components of technology were already in place. But there was actually one other ingredient that was very important, which is agility. And the team was incredibly agile. And that's why I mentioned the leaders in the team as well, because we were able to pivot within hours of seeing circumstances evolve. We were able to move our employees, you know, to work from home very quickly. We were able to think about challenges around supply chains and distribution channels and things very, very quickly as a company. I remember many discussions that we were having in the very early days. In fact, I was actually in India as things started to unwind in China. And I continued to travel through the region, and at each stop on the way as things evolved, we were making different business decisions. But because we were agile and because we had the right foundational pieces in place, we were able to just move. We were just able to make decisions and respond to those circumstances. But the challenges last year won't be the challenges next year. But I think having the right foundational technologies in place for a distributed workforce, having the right mindset and the right philosophy and the right team engagement will really sustain us through pretty much any circumstance.
Yeah, it was, I think for the audience, obviously we shut down and we went virtual within hours, right? In the US. In fact, we're still virtual right now in the US, and most of the Americas is still pretty much, most offices are shut down, and we're all working from home. And I would say we pretty much haven't missed a beat. I think my wife's wondering why I keep working the hours I'm working right now, right? But other than that, everything is good.
You actually touch on an important point, if I could, Robert, which is that as we think about post-pandemic world, as we start to think about the opportunities that it's presented, it's kind of challenged a lot of our thinking. I think there are a lot of leaders who may have in the past thought that the only way for their teams to be productive was to be physically present in an office. I think that myth has been bust, certainly for a lot of knowledge workers. I think as we move beyond it, I think that's where the real opportunities lie, is to really think about giving employees choice. So I'm pretty excited about that.
Yeah. Hey, and that's a good point, right? Because I think the world as we knew it has changed. Period. End of story. The way, I remember one large computer company a couple of years ago basically said, okay, we're going to bring everyone back into the office. And they established an East, West, Central. In Chicago was the central, that we had an East Coast presence for this large computer company, and then an East and a West Coast center, right? And everyone was said, move to those locations and come into the office every day. I don't think that's anywhere close to applicable, right? In fact, IDC, I just saw a study from IDC. They said that over 50% of the non-essential employees will be working from home by 2024. And by the way, it's 30% if you go worldwide, right? And so we think that's going to change, and supporting those people and making them productive at home is going to be a big deal. That's where the VMware would be useful, right? But hey, so Jason, we talked about changing policies for people who work from home. We've had companies that had people just take PCs home, i.e. that used to be in the firewall, and now how do you update them, right? How do you deal with that? And more importantly, if you look at what's happening, that perimeter's changed, right? So now you're seeing, the Microsoft breach or the F5 breach that just hit this week. We saw the SolarWinds back in December, for instance. From a security perspective, what do you do to kind of secure all those devices that are now at right here in my house, right? How do you secure them? How do you update them? Are you doing anything different from a security perspective to kind of correct or control that perimeter, or anything around zero trust access that you're doing?
Yeah, so I think the idea of kind of having this, having a very high wall and a moat around it, which was probably your physical office, that idea is also gone by the wayside. And I think that's where we moved to kind of this zero trust idea. I think as we think more about, work from home or distributed workforce, because I think the vast majority of people that are currently working from home right now have said, I think the number of surveys, both internally and externally, that have reinforced this, that most people, given the choice, would like flexibility.
Yeah.
But flexibility isn't just in the office or at home. It could be from anywhere, and it should be from anywhere. And to do that means we really have to think about security from a device level as well. How do we secure the device so you truly can take that device, whether it's a laptop or a mobile device, anywhere, and have confidence that what you're doing is secure and protected and that you're being responsible. So I really think that that's kind of a shift in thinking. The idea of VPNing into something somewhere, and that's where everything was. I really think that that's kind of dissolving. And I think a SaaS future or a cloud-based future just reinforces that point.
Yeah, exactly. SaaS is going to be, by definition, multi-cloud, right? Yeah. And you're going to have multiple apps in different clouds, whether they're your own apps or something you developed and you launched on VMC, on AVS, or on Azure, or any number of clouds, right? So you've got to think about how do you do zero trust in that context, all right? So let's switch gears a little bit. So VMware's acquired, in fact, last count I did, unless we announced something today, there was 50 companies we've acquired in the last 12 years, right?
Okay.
We're only 25 years old as a company, but still 50 companies. You can see as you bring them in, and I notice in your org chart, you've got someone that's responsible for M&A, but you're using some of VMware's technologies. But talk a little bit about how do you ensure you integrate that company and then give them a rich employee experience?
Okay. So first off, yeah, every company is different. The circumstances around an acquisition are different. What our intent is in terms of, is it a technology focused thing? Is it a talent thing? Is it both? Is it, all of these things are different. And, even the best oiled machine would not fully integrate an acquisition overnight, certainly not an acquisition of any size.
Yeah.
So then you get into all the complexities of, okay, how do you manage risk? Because, the profiles of those environments are different from a security posture perspective. How do you ensure productivity? How do you make sure that people from the joining the company from an acquisition can communicate effectively and work successfully with VMware?
Mm-hmm.
So all of those things, they're considerations and complexities that have to be figured out. The great news is using things like our own solutions, like Horizon View as an example, have allowed us to project access into the VMware environment in a secure manner, but still giving a rich, effective experience to the employees that are joining VMware. Yeah. Using Workspace ONE to, grant access control to certain tools and services inside of VMware or out of VMware, has made for a very rich experience for the companies that, that have joined the company. So, just using some of these tools have allowed us to increase or reduce the time to productivity, reduce the friction, and increase the sense of togetherness. And you can't underestimate that. When a company is acquired, when a company joins another company, there's a lot of anxiety, and anything we can do by leveraging technology to reduce the walls from an experience perspective, while not compromising security and integrity is a win.
How do you stay current with technology trends? What do you go to? What's your source of information? Who do you look to? Are you looking for vendors to come give you presentations, or are you doing CIO councils? What kinds of things do you do to stay current with trends in technology?
Yeah, so definitely CIO councils. There are other CIOs that I talk to, and I think you'll find that it's a pretty tight-knit community. Most CIOs know each other or know of each other and can connect with each other pretty quickly. They will often share things with one another, in confidence, to just kind of get a sense of, what's on their mind, what problems they're trying to solve. I think the other thing that I've done through my career is, while there are absolutely companies that I will spend time with, I could not possibly spend time with every company that wants to talk to me. I just wouldn't be humanly possible. So I think what I've really tried to do over the years is really focused on some trusted advisors. And this is where we come back to relationships. There are people who are in a sales function who I have known for decades in various companies, and I trust them. Because I know what they're doing, I know what they need to do, and they know what I need to do. But there's respect and there's trust there as well, and that building those relationships and connections over time are absolutely critically important. I'm sure everybody that's on your team knows that better than I do. The other thing as well is that I try not to rely too heavily on analyst reports. I find it. I view them more as an interesting perspective. Rather than the golden rule or the final word, because the reality is, Robert, we're blessed that we have some incredible talent inside of the company, and we've intentionally built talent with diversity of ideas and backgrounds and experience. And if I really listen to our team, and I mean really listen to them, I can learn a tremendous amount. And we try and do that across the organization, regardless of title or seniority, really like paying attention to what people say. And like I said at the beginning, that it's both an enriching experience, but also incredibly valuable.
Yeah. So again, CIO councils, your
trusted partners,
trusted advisors, your people that you kind of are your go-to people from an industry that you've met and you've got relationships with, they fill you in on what they're doing, what's going on in their segments, for instance. And then you depend on your leadership team to kind of just bring you that data and update you on what's happening.
And other relationships I have, some of which are, with our product organizations and elsewhere. If I think about it from a longer lens, if you said, okay, Jason, not just kind of what's on the horizon in the next 12, 18, 24, but kind of an even longer horizon still, I look at organizations like the Long Now Foundation. I don't know if you've ever heard of those guys, but really trying to think about the problems that face humanity for a very long period of time, because they help inform my thinking about the challenges and the opportunity. And this is the other thing. It's not just about challenges. It's also about opportunities. How do you unlock the opportunities that are going to differentiate your team or your company for the future?
Yeah, exactly. Awesome. Great. Thanks, Jason. Hey, final question. What advice would you give to other technologists that want to be CIOs? What any advice in terms of how they would prepare to get ready to compete for a CIO role like you just got into?
I think what I would say is the title is nice and the responsibility is significant. But I think far more important than that and far more sustaining than that is knowing what sort of person you want to be and what sort of leader you want to be. And what sort of outcomes you want to drive, because those things will sustain, the evolution of any title or any company that you work for. So in my particular case, as I said, people are at the core of what I do and my thinking. Yeah. I think that really informs how I think and how I shape outcomes. So it isn't about technology. It's really about where are your passions and where do you believe you can make the biggest difference in the world. And if you focus on those things, I think you will both feel more rewarded, but ultimately when you get to whatever that next opportunity or role is, you will do your very best work. So I think you've got to think about what sort of CIO you want to be.
Yeah, got it. Thanks, Jason. And again, thanks for joining us for this interview. Really appreciate your thoughts.
Thank you.
Bye.